Yo, I got first place in my locals playing branded Chimera. This deck is brand new out of Dune. I haven't played it much, just 2 locals, and in both locals it was solid. So, starting off with 3 copies of Mirror Sword Knight. This card is a quick effect tribute to summon from deck. And he has a grave effect where if you control a specifically named fusion monster and your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can banish this from your grave to negate that effect. Then 3 copies of Cornfield Kotal. This is a card you can discard to search for a card like Mirror Swords Knight, or you can add any monster that mentions Chimera Fusion except itself. And this card has a grave effect where if you control the specifically named fusion monster and your opponent tries to target any card on your field, you can banish this from your grave to negate and destroy whatever is trying to do that. Then 3 copies of Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws. This card on normal or special can add any level 5 fiend in the game, or Chimera Fusion. It's usually Chimera Fusion. And it has a grave effect, where if it's used as fusion material, you can add any illusion from deck to hand. Then 2 copies of Big Winged Baphomet. This is usually what you summon off of Sword Knight, because on normal or special, he can add both a level 4 beast and Chimera Fusion. Just a little side note, because it can add a level 4 beast, it can also add a card like Springin's Kit, which I'm not playing in this list, but I was playing last week. And his grave effect, if he's used for fusion summon, you can target an illusion in your grave and reborn it. Then 3 copies of Chimera Fusion. This is a quick play during the main phase poly that requires you to at least use a beast or a fiend, not once per turn. And it has a grave effect that is once per turn. If you control the specifically named fusion, you can add this back to your hand. There is another effect on this card, but it requires you to essentially play 2 vanillas in your deck, so most people don't do that. Then 1 copy of Aluber and 2 branded opening. Just to have more access to branded fusion, I am playing Dragoon in this deck with a brick, so I don't want to just have 3 copies of branded fusion and that's it for my access to it, so here we are. Then playing 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz. A lot of lists only play 1 because he is a brick, but I like having 2 for both follow-up and for additional interruption if need be. There's a play where you can go branded fusion, send double Albaz to make Lubellion, and then you go Lubellion plus Albaz into Mirror Jade, and then when you use your Mirror Jade, you send Rinbrum, and then Rinbrum will be live because you still have an Albaz left in your grave to reborn him and fuse your opponent's stuff off. So I think that is a play that warrants playing too. I did that a lot last week. I did that 0 times this week. Then, speaking of bricks, I was playing 1 copy of Dark Magician to give Dragoon a pop. Obviously, this isn't Dark Magician. I had to borrow one from a friend. I somehow don't own this card, but I think this is going to be the card that I replace Dark Magician with in the future because it's a fusion substitute and it's a fiend. So this card can count as Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, it can count as Fallen of Albaz, it can count as Dark Magician, so this can make Dragoon, this can make all of the Albaz targets, and it's a fiend, so if you happen to open it, it's not terrible because you can still use Chimera Fusion to do stuff with it. As opposed to Dark Magician, who I never used the pop effect, which is the entire reason I was playing it. It could very easily come up that you need to use that pop. It just didn't happen. So I don't think it's horrible playing Dark Magician, but yeah, this is probably optimal, I would say. Then 3 copies of Branded Fusion. Obviously, this card is bonkers. You can do the double Albaz play, you can make Dragoon, you can make Albaz plus Gazelle to make Rindbrum, which then triggers the Gazelle to search for an illusion, which gets you into your main combo. And yeah, there's also the looming threat that you're just playing branded when you activate this card, which like Branded is essentially FTKing with Gimmick Puppet, and Dragoon being in this deck also punishes your opponent for not ashing this, so this is kind of just a ash magnet when they really should be ashing your Sword Knight, but it's kind of just a tough situation. Then for the hand traps, I'm on 3 Nib, 3 Ash, and then 1 Mourner, 1 Veiler, 1 Droll, and 2 Imperm. These ratios are weird and probably wrong. Nib is for all the various combo decks and Unchained. I also don't think it's bad in the mirror. Ash is pretty good against most things right now. Mourner and Veiler are here for crossout, but they're also just hand traps I can draw off Guardian Chimera and have them be live. I think it's important to have a lot of your interaction in this deck be outside of the back row, because people can just fire Feather Duster and just auto win against this deck, because they're going to get your Chimera Fusion, they can get your Imperms, your books, decks, your super polys. Obviously, I think Imperm is too good to not play, but I do think in this deck, having monsters is a little bit better in general. The Droll is here as a cross-out target, by the way. Then 3 book... 3 cross out, 2 talents, and 1 called by. The first time I played this deck in a locals, I sided in cross out every game, and I felt that it was like absolutely broken every time. So I just decided to main deck it this time, and yeah, this card is insane. Talents was decent, but it kind of feels unnecessary. I feel like I don't really need this card. I might cut it in the future to just play like more hand traps. I could play something like Fenrir, or I could just play nothing at all, because I am at 43 cards in this list currently. Maybe keep it at 1 for the cross-out target, because I feel like thrust into talents is going to be a really popular thing that happens against this deck. And yeah, for the extra deck, 2 copies of Chimera, the King of Phantom Beasts. This card has the name that enables all your little graveyard shenanigans. On summon, he activates to send a random card from your opponent's hand to the grave during the end phase. Toxic. And he has a grave effect. During your opponent's turn, you can banish this to target a beast, fiend, or illusion in your grave and reborn it. Then 2 copies of Guardian Chimera. The second one never came up. Branded fusion stuff, 1 Albion, 1 Lubellion, Rinbrum, and Mirajade. Dragoon. Then Magnum the Reliever. This card takes a monster special from the extra deck and 1 monster from the hand. He can recycle fusion spells to draw a card, and if any effect is activated, he can trigger to banish a fusion spell from your grave and to target a card and pop it. I summoned him in the last locals a few times, but I never summoned him in this locals. Then a copy of Chimera the Illusion Beast. This card takes Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast plus any amount of illusions, and he has the illusion text where nothing can die when he battles. It can attack up to the number of materials used to make it, so it has minimum 2 attacks. And at the end of the damage step, he permanently negates non-targeting the monster he attacked and permanently reduces its attack to 0. So this card is basically a finisher, or he can be an out to certain boss monsters. And he also counts as Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, so again things like Kodal and Sword Knight will be live. I don't think I've summoned this in a locals yet, but it is certainly a good card and worth playing, I think. Then Dragostapelia, Muddragon, Garura. These are super poly targets, but there are situations where it can come up to just make these to like dodge hand traps with Chimera Fusion, and you don't want to use your Guardian Chimera yet. Same goes with Dragostapelia. He's a super poly target that also kind of just works in your deck. And the last card is 1 copy of Cross Sheep. This is an out to Ibly, because you're not actually fusion locked until you use any branded stuff or Berthamit. So you can just summon a guy, summon Cross Sheep, and then Cross Sheep can either, if you have enough stuff, you can just go Chimera Fusion, fuse away, summon to this zone, and reborn what you sent away with the Ibly to make him. Or he's a beast himself, so you could just use Chimera Fusion and this guy and 2 in hand to like pop 1, draw 2 if you want. Or if you open Berthamit, you can make, you know, the Chimera Fusion. I think it's a good card. I think it's worth playing. For the side deck, there's a lot I'm unsure of here. There's a lot I think should be changed, but here's where we are. 2 Radiant, playing Radiant over Gamma Seal because it's a fiend, so if you open this and like you don't need him because you're playing like a hand trap turbo deck, then he's something you can work with. I guess you could also super poly it away if you want. You give them a fiend, you normal Gazelle, you have a beast and a fiend to make Chimera. An extra copy of Droll. I should probably be on 3 because there are a lot of decks that are basically FTKs that need this as the answer, and I don't want to be caught without having it. 3 Super Poly. This card was absolutely mandatory for me to win round 4 against Labyrinth. I don't think I would main deck this in this format. There's enough matchups where it just isn't very good, and I think it's just better in the side. Then a ton of back row hate, Duster, Triple Cosmic, Double Evenly. This is the only time you'll ever see me playing Double Evenly. I think Cosmic at 3 is absolutely necessary in this format. I feel like it's the best possible card to be playing for back row. I don't think Evenly is like that good this format, honestly. I feel like I'm gonna end up cutting this just to play like, I could play additional copies of Droll. I could put all of the Drolls in the side and not main deck one. I could play Book of Eclipse. I could add another Kaiju. I just feel like most matchups I either don't need this or it's not good enough. So I'm gonna cut Evenly in the future. And then 3D Barrier. I side 1 going second every time as a crossout target, and it's been game winning at least 2 times, I think, maybe 3. And yeah, that's the deck. It's just 1 card starters and a bunch of non-engine. A Recipe for Success. If you want to see the list I played a week ago, I'll post that one in the community tab on my channel, and I'll give some reasoning why I made certain changes. And yeah, thanks for watching.